Shadows of the past. The rain poured down in sheets, turning the street into a slick, shimmering surface that reflected the dim glow of the streetlights. Samuel Green, a 79-year-old black man, walked slowly down the empty street, his weathered hands swinging gently at his sides. To any passerby, he might have appeared just like any other elderly gentleman out for a solitary evening stroll. But beneath his unassuming exterior lay a lifetime of experiences, both beautiful and harrowing, that had shaped him into a resilient figure. Samuel's mind wandered as he walked, his thoughts drifting back to his youth. Memories of the military flooded his mind, the heat of jungles, the deafening sound of gunfire, and the weight of responsibility that had once rested heavily on his shoulders. He remembered the adrenaline coursing through his veins during missions, the taste of fear tempered by courage. Those days were long gone, and the uniform he once wore had been replaced by the comfortable, yet slightly worn, clothing of an ordinary man. Yet the discipline and vigilance ingrained in him during those years remained sharp, a second nature that had become an inseparable part of his being. As he approached the ATM, Samuel's eyes scanned the area out of habit, a reflex born from years of service. The street was deserted, save for the low hum of the rain and the distant sound of thunder rumbling ominously. But something felt off. Samuel noticed a young man loitering nearby, a figure whose presence seemed incongruous in the stillness of the night. The young man's body language set off alarm bells in Samuel's mind, and he instinctively adjusted his posture, becoming more alert. Inserting his card into the machine, Samuel focused on the task at hand, but his senses remained heightened. He kept one eye on the reflection in the ATM screen, watching as the young man began to approach with a purposeful stride. Samuel's muscles tensed imperceptibly, his body preparing for what his instincts told him was an impending confrontation. "Hey, old-timer," the voice called out, dripping with a false friendliness that Samuel could see through instantly. He turned slowly, steeling himself for what was to come. The young man stood before him, his smirk curling on his lips, his eyes glinting with malice that cut through the heavy rain. "Evening," Samuel replied calmly, his voice steady and measured despite the rising tension in his chest. He took in the young man's appearance. Mid-twenties, unkempt hair, clothes that had seen better days. But it was the glint of metal in the man's hand that truly caught Samuel's attention. A knife, a weapon that turned the air thick with danger. "Empty your pockets, old man," the young man demanded, brandishing the knife with a flourish that suggested he was more interested in instilling fear than actually harming anyone. Samuel's heart raced as the scene unfolded in front of him. The rain continued to pour down, creating a wall of sound that muted the world around them. He felt a familiar surge of adrenaline, the kind he had experienced countless times before, but this time it was different. He was no longer the young soldier trained to face enemies in combat. He was an old man confronting the shadows of desperation embodied by this young mugger. "Is this really how you want to do this?" Samuel asked, his voice calm despite the chaos swirling within him. The question hung in the air, a challenge wrapped in wisdom. He saw a flicker of surprise cross the young man's face, a crack in the armor of bravado that the mugger had donned. "Shut up. Just give me your money." Jake spat, his voice wavering slightly as uncertainty crept into his demeanor. "Look, son," Samuel said, taking a small step back to keep some distance between them. "I don't have much on me, but what I do have is yours. Just put the knife away. This isn't the answer." The young man hesitated, and in that moment, Samuel saw an opportunity to reach the boy buried beneath the anger and desperation. He decided to take a risk. "I was once like you," he continued, his voice softening. "I know what it feels like to struggle, to feel lost. But this path you're on will only lead to more pain. Trust me, I've been there." Samuel's mind flashed back to his own struggles in the years following his service, lost friends, trauma, and a creeping despair that had sometimes seemed insurmountable. The weight of those memories pressed down on him, urging him to connect with this young man to show him there was another way. "Why are you doing this?" Samuel asked, his gaze steady and sincere. "What has led you to this moment?" "There's always a choice." Jake's grip on the knife faltered, his confidence beginning to crumble. Samuel could see the inner turmoil raging within him. The rain splattered around them, mixing with the unease of the moment. Samuel's words pierced through the fog of anger that enveloped the young man, and for a fleeting second, Samuel could see vulnerability flickering in Jake's eyes, a glimmer of the boy he might have been had life treated him differently. "What do you know about me?" Jake shot back, but his voice lacked the same fire. The bravado was slipping away, and Samuel sensed that the facade was beginning to crack. "I know that life can be tough," Samuel replied, feeling the weight of his years pressing against his heart. "I know that sometimes it feels like you're fighting a battle you can't win, but I also know that there's hope. You don't have to keep hurting people to find your way." The tension hung thick in the air, the rain drumming a steady rhythm as Samuel continued to speak, hoping to reach the heart of the young man before him. "Just a few years ago I was lost too," he said. I lost my wife, my best friend from the service. I felt like I was drowning in sorrow. But I found a way to honor their memories by helping others, by giving back instead of taking. There's a world of opportunity out there for you if you're willing to seek it." Jake's expression shifted, uncertainty battling against the hardened exterior he had put up. The knife trembled in his hand as he listened, torn between the choices laid before him. Samuel could see that the young man was searching for something, perhaps an escape, perhaps forgiveness. The rain continued to pour, soaking them both, but in that moment, time seemed to stand still. Samuel reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled $20 bill, holding it out with open palms, his eyes steady and unwavering. "Take this," he offered softly, "but promise me you'll think about what I said. You don't have to live like this." Jake stared at the money, the knife wavering dangerously in his grip. It was as if a storm was raging not just outside, but within him. Samuel held his breath, hoping that the compassion he was offering might reach the lost boy standing before him. "Just take it and go," Samuel urged, his voice calm and steady. "It's not too late to turn back. You have a choice." In that charged moment, with the rain pouring down around them and the world seemingly falling away, Samuel felt the gravity of the situation. He was no longer just an old man being cornered by a mugger. He was a veteran trying to save a young soul from the abyss. The knife finally fell to the ground, clattering against the pavement as Jake's shoulders sagged, the tension in his body dissipating like the storm clouds above. I didn't mean to," he stammered, the bravado melting away as he reached for the money. "It's okay," Samuel said gently, relief flooding his chest. "Just remember that you have the power to choose a different path." With that, Samuel took a step back, allowing Jake to take the $20 bill. In that moment, a fragile bridge formed between them, a connection that transcended age, race, and circumstance. The rain fell around them, washing away the darkness that had threatened to consume both their lives. As Jake turned and began to walk away, Samuel felt a mix of emotions coursing through him: fear, relief, and hope. He had faced down the barrel of a knife and emerged not just unscathed, but with the conviction that he had made a difference. Samuel watched as the young man melted into the shadows of the night, the echoes of their encounter lingering in the air like the fading storm. He felt a renewed sense of purpose flooding through him, knowing that perhaps, just perhaps, he had saved not just Jake, but also a piece of himself. As he stood there in the rain, his heart pounding in his chest, Samuel Green realized that courage comes in many forms, and sometimes it takes confronting the darkness in others to truly find the light within oneself. With a deep breath, he turned away from the ATM, his feet finding their rhythm once again. The rain continued to fall, but it felt lighter now, almost cleansing. Samuel walked on, each step a testament to resilience, hope, and the undeniable power of compassion. Turning points. The storm had begun to wane, and its ferocity diminished to a gentle patter that mingled with the distant sounds of the city coming to life at night. Samuel Green walked with a renewed sense of purpose, the adrenaline still coursing through his veins. The encounter with Jake had been surreal, a clash of worlds that left him shaken yet strangely invigorated. As he made his way down the rain-soaked streets, his mind wandered to the last moments of their confrontation. The boy had looked so lost, so desperate. Samuel couldn't shake the feeling that he had glimpsed the turmoil buried beneath Jake's hardened exterior. A young man grappling with pain, confusion, and a yearning for something more. With each step, Samuel's resolve deepened. He had spent a lifetime fighting battles both in the service and in the quiet struggles of civilian life. After returning from the war, he had dedicated himself to his community, helping veterans navigate the often treacherous waters of reintegration. Now he felt a calling, a pull to do something more than just live his life. He wanted to make a difference. Samuel had seen far too many young men like Jake, trapped in cycles of violence and despair. He knew that desperation often bred impulsive decisions, leading them down paths that could result in tragedy. And while he couldn't change the past, perhaps he could influence the future, one young man at a time. He arrived at his modest home, a small brick house adorned with ivy that had climbed over the years. The flickering porch light welcomed him back, casting a warm glow against the night's chill. Samuel took a moment to gather his thoughts before stepping inside, his heart heavy yet hopeful. As he closed the door behind him, the familiar scent of old books and brewed coffee enveloped him. He took off his coat and hung on the hook by the door, his mind still replaying the encounter with Jake. It was a pivotal moment that demanded action, a call to arms not in the traditional sense, but a fight for redemption and hope. Samuel poured himself a cup of coffee, the rich aroma filling the air as he settled into his favorite armchair, a well-worn seat that had cradled him through countless evenings of reflection and contemplation. He picked up a photo from the side table, a picture of his late wife, Sarah, smiling in the summer sun, her eyes sparkling with warmth and kindness. The memory of her laughter echoed in his mind, reminding him of their shared belief in the power of compassion. "Sarah," he whispered as if she could hear him, "I wish you were here. You always knew how to guide me." After a moment, Samuel set the photo down and grabbed a notebook, its pages filled with his musings and plans for his community outreach program. He had been formulating ideas to assist at-risk youth, a project he had been hesitant to initiate due to self-doubt and uncertainty about his ability to make an impact. But now, the urgency of his encounter with Jake propelled him forward. He began to jot down notes. Youth Outreach Program, Hope and Redemption. The title resonated deeply within him. Samuel envisioned a safe space for young men like Jake, a place where they could come to share their struggles, learn new skills, and find purpose beyond the streets. In those pages, he detailed ideas for workshops, resume writing, job interviews, mentorship programs, and even counseling sessions to address the emotional turmoil many of these young men faced. He envisioned guest speakers, former service members who had faced similar struggles and emerged on the other side, ready to share their stories of triumph over adversity. As the clock ticked softly in the background, Samuel poured his heart into the pages, his thoughts flowing freely. He felt a fire igniting within him, a realization that he could turn his pain into purpose. "If I can help just one young man find his way," he wrote, "then it will all be worth it." The words filled him with a sense of fulfillment, as if he were finally stepping into the shoes he had been meant to wear all along. That night, Samuel barely slept. His mind buzzed with excitement and determination. He rose early the next morning, the sun barely peeking over the horizon, casting a golden hue across the dew-kissed grass. He made his way to the local community center, a hub of activity that had seen better days but still stood as a beacon of hope for many. Samuel entered the center, greeted by the familiar faces of volunteers and staff preparing for the day. "Morning, Samuel," called out Linda, a fellow volunteer and longtime friend. "What brings you in so early?" "Got an idea brewing," he replied with a smile, the energy buzzing within him evident in his voice. "I want to start a program for the youth, something that gives them hope and guidance." Linda's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. "That sounds incredible. You know, we've been wanting to find ways to engage the younger crowd. What do you have in mind?" Samuel spent the next few hours outlining his vision, sharing his thoughts about mentorship, skill-building workshops, and emotional support systems. As he spoke, he could see Linda's excitement grow, her mind racing with possibilities. "You know, I think we can work together to get this off the ground," she said, her eyes shining with determination. "The community needs this. We can host meetings, reach out to local businesses for support, and even enlist some of the veterans to share their experiences." With Linda's support, the pieces of his plan began to fall into place. They spent hours drafting proposals, brainstorming potential names for the program, and outlining the steps necessary to make it a reality. Samuel felt a sense of purpose flooding his veins, a stark contrast to the shadows of doubt that had lingered for too long. As they worked, Samuel couldn't help but think of Jake. Would he be willing to join this program? Would he see the light that Samuel had glimpsed in their brief encounter? By midday, they had developed a solid outline for the program and decided to hold an initial meeting to gauge interest. Samuel felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Would the young men in the community see the value in what he was offering? Would they trust him enough to open up about their struggles? With a flyer in hand, he began to spread the word. He reached out to local schools, community organizations, and even the local barbershop, a well-known gathering place for many young men in the area. He spoke passionately about the program, sharing his vision and the importance of creating a safe space for them to gather. "Come on, fellas," he'd say, his voice warm and inviting. "This is a chance to change the narrative. It's about finding purpose, building skills, and connecting with others who've been through similar battles. We all deserve a second chance, don't we?" As the days turned into weeks, interest began to grow. Young men from all walks of life started showing up, each carrying their own burdens, their own stories. Some were eager, others hesitant, but all shared a glimmer of hope and desire for something better. One rainy evening, as Samuel set up chairs for the first official meeting of the program, he caught sight of a familiar face. Jake stood at the entrance, drenched from the downpour, but with an expression that held both uncertainty and determination. The sight of him sent a rush of emotions through Samuel. "Jake," he called, a smile breaking across his face. "I'm glad you came." The young man hesitated, his eyes darting around the room. "I wasn't sure if I should. I didn't think anyone would want to hear what I had to say." "That's exactly why you should be here," Samuel replied, his tone earnest. "We're all here to listen and to help each other. Everyone has a story worth sharing." With a nod, Jake stepped inside, shaking off the rain as he joined the group. Samuel felt a swell of pride and relief. This was the moment he had envisioned, the bridge connecting the past with the promise of a brighter future. The meeting commenced and Samuel shared his vision for the program, highlighting the importance of community, understanding, and support. He encouraged everyone to share their experiences, creating an atmosphere of trust and vulnerability. One by one, the young men began to open up, sharing tales of hardship, loss, and the relentless pursuit of something better. Samuel listened intently, his heart swelling with compassion as he realized that this gathering was more than just a program. It was a lifeline for many. As the evening wore on, Samuel's gaze found Jake, who sat quietly, listening intently to the stories being shared. It was clear he was still grappling with his own thoughts, but there was something different about him. An openness, a willingness to confront his past. When the time came for discussion, Samuel invited Jake to share. "You have a voice, Jake. We want to hear from you." Jake shifted in his seat, vulnerability etched across his features. "I don't know if what I have to say matters," he murmured. "It matters," Samuel assured him, his voice steady. "You never know who might relate to your story." After a moment of silence, Jake took a deep breath. "I've messed up a lot," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. "I felt like I had no other choice, like I was trapped. I've hurt people and myself, and I didn't know how to stop. I was just angry. Angry at the world for not giving me a fair shot." The room fell silent, every eye on Jake as he continued. "When I approached you that night, I didn't just want your money. I was desperate." Confronting the shadows, Jake's voice trembled as he shared his truth, each word a raw confession of his pain and struggles. The young men in the room leaned in closer, their expressions shifting from skepticism to empathy. Samuel felt the weight of Jake's honesty reverberate through the air, a shared vulnerability that had the power to bind them together. "I've hurt people and myself, and I didn't know how to stop. I was just angry at the world for not giving me a fair shot," Jake continued, his eyes downcast. "My mom worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table after my dad left. I never had anyone to teach me how to be better, to show me that there was a different way. I thought I had to take what I wanted because that was the only way to survive." Samuel's heart ached as he listened. He understood Jake's frustration, the feelings of hopelessness that could drive a person to the edge. He felt a connection to the boy's plight, a familiar echo of the struggles many had faced in silence. "Jake," Samuel said gently, "I get it. I've seen and experienced anger too. I know what it's like to feel abandoned by those who are supposed to care. But hurting others won't fill the void inside. There's strength in choosing a different path, and you don't have to walk it alone." Jake looked up, meeting Samuel's gaze for the first time. There was a flicker of hope in his eyes, but it was mingled with doubt. "I want to change, but I don't know how," he admitted, his voice cracking. "I'm scared I'll just mess up again." "You will stumble, we all do. Change is a process, not a destination," Samuel replied, his voice steady and reassuring. "But this is a place for learning, for growth. Together we can figure it out. You have a choice to make each day." As Jake listened, Samuel could see the walls around him beginning to crumble. This was the purpose he had sought, the opportunity to be a beacon of hope for those who felt lost in darkness. The meeting continued with each young man sharing their story and Samuel facilitating discussions about their struggles and aspirations. By the end of the night, there was a palpable sense of camaraderie that had formed among them, a bond forged in the crucible of shared experiences and vulnerability. As the group began to disperse, Jake lingered, hesitating at the door. Samuel approached him, sensing the turmoil still brewing within the young man. "You did great tonight, Jake," he said, offering a warm smile. "Your story matters. It's a start, and I'm proud of you for sharing it." "Thanks," Jake replied, his voice soft. "I don't usually talk about stuff like that. It feels weird but good. I just don't know if I can keep this up." Samuel placed a hand on Jake's shoulder, grounding him in the moment. "You're not alone. We're in this together. Take it one step at a time. If you ever need to talk, I'm just a phone call away." Jake nodded, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. As he stepped out into the night, Samuel watched him disappear into the darkness, a mixture of hope and concern swirling within him. He believed in Jake's potential, but he also understood that change wouldn't come easy. Over the following weeks, the program began to take shape. Samuel and Linda organized workshops that ranged from job skills to emotional support. They invited local business owners to speak, encouraging mentorship opportunities and internships for the young men. The response was overwhelmingly positive, with more participants joining each week. Samuel felt invigorated as he poured his energy into the program, witnessing the transformation of the young men around him. Jake became a regular attendee, gradually finding his voice among the group. Each session brought new revelations, and with each shared experience, the bonds between them deepened. One evening, as they sat in a circle, Samuel decided to challenge the group. "Tonight, I want us to think about our dreams. What do you truly want for your life?" The question hung in the air, stirring a flurry of thoughts and emotions. One by one, the young men began to share their aspirations. Some dreamed of becoming mechanics, others wanted to pursue careers in the arts, while a few expressed a desire to serve in the military, inspired by Samuel's own story. When it was Jake's turn, he hesitated, glancing down at his hands. "I always wanted to be a chef," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I thought it was just a silly dream. I didn't think I could actually do it." "That's not silly at all, Jake," Samuel exclaimed, his heart warming at the young man's revelation. "It's a beautiful dream. Cooking is a craft and art form. You have the chance to create something meaningful." Jake's eyes brightened slightly, the flicker of hope reigniting within him. "But I don't know where to start. I don't have any money for classes or anything." "Let's find a way to make it happen," Samuel replied, his mind racing with possibilities. "I know a few local chefs who might be willing to mentor you. Perhaps we can set up a cooking class at the community center. You could teach others too, share your passion." As the group continued discussing their dreams, Samuel felt a surge of inspiration. He realized that they could lift each other up, creating a community where they could all thrive. That weekend, Samuel contacted several local chefs, sharing his vision for a culinary workshop. To his delight, a few expressed immediate interest, eager to support young aspiring chefs. With their help, the first cooking class was scheduled and excitement buzzed through the group. The night of the cooking class arrived and Samuel stood in front of the community center, watching as the young men trickled in. Jake was one of the first to arrive, his demeanor more confident than before. "Hey, Jake," Samuel greeted, a smile spreading across his face. "You ready to cook up a storm?" "Definitely," Jake replied, the enthusiasm evident in his voice. "I can't wait to learn from these chefs." As the class began, Samuel watched with pride as Jake and the others immersed themselves in the experience. The chefs shared techniques, taught them about flavor profiles, and encouraged their creativity. Laughter filled the air as they chopped, sautéed, and tasted their creations, an infectious energy pulsating throughout the room. For the first time in a long while, Jake felt a sense of belonging. As he worked alongside his peers, the weight of his past began to lift, replaced by the joy of pursuing a passion that had long felt out of reach. After the class, as they sat together, sharing their culinary masterpieces, Samuel felt a warmth enveloping the room. Conversations flowed freely, dreams were exchanged, and plans were made. It was more than just cooking. It was a celebration of resilience, hope, and newfound friendships. "Samuel," Jake said, wiping his hands on a towel, "thank you for believing in me. I didn't think I could do this, but now I really want to chase this dream." Samuel's heart swelled with pride. "You did this, Jake. You took the first step. Remember, it's your journey, and I'm just here to help you along the way." As the night wore on, Samuel realized that he was witnessing something profound, a transformation not just in Jake, but in the entire group. They were finding their voices, their passions, and the courage to confront their pasts. But just as he felt a sense of triumph, a nagging thought crept into his mind. The shadows of Jake's past still lingered, and Samuel knew that one moment of weakness could threaten to unravel everything they had built together. Would the demons of despair resurface? Would Jake succumb to the pressures that had once consumed him? The weeks passed, filled with laughter, cooking, and deeper connections. Samuel worked tirelessly, ensuring that each young man felt supported and empowered. He watched as they explored their dreams and passions, feeling a sense of fulfillment that he hadn't experienced in years. But beneath the surface, he couldn't shake the feeling that danger still loomed. One evening, as the group sat around the table discussing their culinary experiences, Jake's demeanor shifted. He seemed distant, his eyes clouded with a shadow that Samuel recognized all too well. "Everything okay, Jake?" Samuel asked, concern creeping into his voice. Jake forced a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Yeah, just thinking about some things." Samuel's heart sank as he sensed the turmoil brewing within the young man. "You know you can talk to me, right? Whatever it is, you're not alone." "I know," Jake replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's just hard. I'm trying to keep it together, but sometimes I feel like I'm being pulled back to that dark place." Samuel leaned forward, his heart aching for Jake. "It's okay to feel that way. Change is never easy, and the shadows of our past can be heavy. But remember how far you've come. You're here, and you're choosing a different path every day." Jake nodded, but the uncertainty lingered in his eyes. Samuel resolved to keep a close watch on him, to ensure he didn't slip back into the despair that had nearly consumed him. As the weeks turned into months, the culinary program flourished, but Samuel noticed that Jake's enthusiasm began to wane. He started the struggle within. As autumn settled over the city, the leaves turned vibrant shades of orange and red, a stark contrast to the struggles brewing within Jake. The culinary program continued to thrive, yet Jake's spark seemed to dim with each passing week. Samuel noticed it in the way he participated less, often lost in thought during their discussions. It weighed heavily on Samuel's heart, and he felt the urgency to reach out and bring Jake back into the fold. One chilly evening, after a particularly successful cooking class that had ended with laughter and delicious food, Samuel decided it was time for a heart-to-heart. As the other young men filtered out, chatting excitedly about their next culinary creations, he motioned for Jake to stay behind. "Jake, can we talk?" Samuel asked gently, his voice steady but filled with concern. Yeah, sure, Jake replied, but Samuel could see the hesitation in his eyes. Sit with me for a moment, Samuel said, gesturing toward the table where remnants of their meal still lingered. As they sat across from each other, Samuel took a deep breath, carefully choosing his words. I've noticed you've been quieter lately. I want you to know that I'm here for you no matter what you're facing. You can trust me. Jake stared at the table, tracing the pattern of the wood with his fingers. I don't want to be a burden, he muttered, his voice barely audible. You can never be a burden to me, Jake. Everyone struggles. It's okay to feel loss sometimes. But it's important to talk about it, Samuel reassured him. What's going on in your mind? Jake hesitated, wrestling with his emotions. It's just, I'm scared. I'm trying to change, but I feel like I'm fighting against a part of me that doesn't want to let go. The other night, I thought about that moment at the ATM again, the rush of desperation. I keep seeing that kid in the mirror, and it scares me. Samuel felt a sharp pang of empathy. He understood the weight of Jake's struggle. He had witnessed it in his own life and in the lives of others. It's completely normal to feel that way. Change isn't linear, and it's okay to have moments of doubt. But remember, you're not defined by your past. You're more than that moment. You are what you choose to be from here on out. Jake looked up, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. I don't want to go back to that. I don't want to hurt anyone or myself, but I feel so lost sometimes. I don't know if I'm strong enough. You are strong, Jake. You've shown that by being here, by choosing to pursue your passion for cooking instead of falling back into old habits. You're showing up, even when it's hard, Samuel said, his voice filled with conviction. And that's a victory in itself. Remember, every step you take, no matter how small, is a step in the right direction. The tension in Jake's shoulders eased slightly as he absorbed Samuel's words. I just wish it didn't feel so overwhelming, he admitted, his voice breaking. It's okay to take it one day at a time, Samuel replied, feeling a deep connection forming between them. Let's focus on what you love. Let's channel that passion for cooking into something creative. Why not plan a dinner for the group? You could showcase your favorite recipes. A flicker of excitement ignited in Jake's eyes. You really think I could do that? Absolutely. It would give you a chance to share your passion with the others, and I know they'd love it. Plus, it could remind you of why you're here in the first place, to create, to share, and to inspire, Samuel encouraged. All right, I'll do it, Jake said, a newfound determination rising within him. I'll plan a dinner. Over the next few weeks, Jake threw himself into planning the dinner, pouring his heart into every detail. He spent hours researching recipes, practicing techniques, and refining his cooking skills. It was as if a spark had reignited within him, illuminating the path ahead. The other young men in the program rallied around him, offering support and encouragement as the dinner date drew near. As the evening of the dinner approached, excitement filled the community center. Jake transformed the space into a cozy dining area, complete with dim lighting and beautifully set tables. Samuel watched with pride as the young man took charge, coordinating every detail with a mix of passion and enthusiasm that had been missing for too long. On the night of the dinner, the aroma of delicious food wafted through the air, drawing the attention of everyone who entered. The guests, young men from the program, their families, and even a few community members gathered, eager to support Jake in this endeavor. As they sat around the table, Samuel couldn't help but feel a sense of joy at witnessing this moment. Jake stood at the head of the table, his hands slightly trembling, but his smile bright. Thank you all for coming, Jake began, his voice gaining strength as he spoke. Tonight, I wanted to share a piece of myself with you all. Cooking has always been a way for me to express my feelings, and I hope you enjoy what I prepared. The first course was served, an aromatic soup that filled the room with warmth. With each bite, laughter and conversation flowed, creating an atmosphere of camaraderie and celebration. Jake moved from table to table, checking on everyone, his pride radiating like sunlight. As the evening unfolded, Jake shared stories behind each dish, connecting with the guests on a deeper level. He spoke about his journey, the challenges he faced, and the importance of community and overcoming adversity. In that moment, he became not just a cook, but a storyteller, a beacon of resilience for those who listened. When the main course was served, a flavorful stir-fry with vegetables and tender chicken, Jake felt the weight of his past lift as he absorbed the joy of the present. It was a far cry from the desperation he had felt at the ATM that night. Instead of anger, he felt pride. Instead of despair, there was hope. As dessert was served, decadent chocolate mousse that melted in the mouth, Samuel stood and raised his glass. To Jake, for reminding us that our past does not define us. Here's to dreams, to resilience, and to the bonds we create through shared experiences. The room erupted in cheers, glasses clinking together in a joyous celebration of newfound friendships and personal triumphs. Jake's face lit up with a mix of surprise and gratitude. For the first time, he felt like he truly belonged. As the evening wound down, Samuel noticed Jake lingering near the kitchen, his expression thoughtful. After helping to clean up, he approached him, sensing that the young man was still wrestling with something inside. "You did an amazing job tonight, Jake. You should be proud," Samuel said, resting a hand on his shoulder. "Thanks, Samuel," Jake replied, a hint of uncertainty in his voice. "But I can't shake the feeling that this is all just temporary. What happens when the excitement fades and reality hits again?" "Reality can be daunting," Samuel acknowledged, "but you have the tools now. You have a community that supports you, and you've shown that you can overcome obstacles. It's okay to feel anxious about the future. What matters is how you choose to face it." "I guess I'm just afraid of falling back into my old ways," Jake admitted, his vulnerability shining through once again. "That fear is natural, but doesn't have to control you," Samuel said gently. "Think about all the positive steps you've taken. Focus on the journey, not just the destination. Set small goals for yourself and keep reminding yourself of why you're here." "I will," Jake promised, determination returning to his voice. "I just need to keep pushing forward." In the days that followed, Jake continued to embrace his passion for cooking, dedicating time to refine his skills and explore new recipes. He collaborated with other members of the program, and together they organized more community events, fostering a sense of unity among them. However, the shadows of Jake's past remained a constant companion. As he ventured deeper into this new life, the temptation to revert to old habits whispered in the back of his mind, threatening to pull him back into the darkness. He found himself at a crossroads, grappling with the weight of his choices. One fateful evening, as Jake walked home from the community center, he encountered an old acquaintance, Marcus, a figure from his past who had always been a source of trouble. Marcus leaned against a lamppost, a predatory grin spreading across his face as he spotted Jake. "Look who it is, the chef," Marcus called out, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Heard you've been playing house with the old folks over there. How's that working out for you?" Jake's heart raced as he felt the familiar pull of anxiety gripping him. "I don't have time for this, Marcus," he replied, trying to brush past him. "Aw, come on. Just because you found a little community doesn't mean you can forget where you came from," Marcus taunted, stepping closer. "You're still one of us, you know. Why not come hang out? We've got a little party going on tonight." Jake's pulse quickened as the familiar lure of his old life echoed in Marcus's words. The thought of slipping back into that world terrified him, yet a part of him felt tempted. He had fought so hard to escape it, but here was Marcus, offering a momentary thrill that could easily lead to destruction. "Leave me." A fork in the road. Jake felt the weight of Marcus's presence pressing down on him, the familiar tug of old habits threatening to pull him back into the chaos he had worked so hard to escape. The streets around them were dimly lit, casting shadows that mirrored the doubts swirling in his mind. Every instinct screamed at him to walk away, to ignore the temptation, but Marcus was a reminder of the life Jake had once lived, a life filled with excitement, but also filled with pain and regret. "Come on, man, you can't just pretend that life is all sunshine and cooking classes. That stuff is for suckers," Marcus sneered, taking a step closer. "You know we're having a good time. You could come out with us, and we could have a blast like old times, just like before." Jake's heart raced as he grappled with his emotions. The thrill of camaraderie and rebellion flashed through his mind, but it was quickly overshadowed by the recollections of dark nights spent in fear and loneliness. "That's not who I am anymore," Jake said, his voice steadier than he felt. "I've found something better." Marcus laughed, a harsh sound that echoed down the empty street. "Better? You really think these losers care about you? You're just a charity case to them. You think they'll stick around when the going gets tough? They're not your real friends, Jake. I am. I've known you since we were kids." The words struck Jake hard. He could feel the churning in his stomach, a mixture of anger and fear. "You don't know anything about me now. I'm not that kid you used to run with. I'm trying to build a life for myself, and you're just trying to drag me back into the gutter. You think you can just walk away? It doesn't work like that," Marcus shouted, frustration seeping into his voice. "I know your weaknesses, Jake. I know what you're afraid of. You're just one bad day away from slipping back into the old you." For a moment, Jake felt the weight of those words. The thought of returning to the darkness was suffocating. But he quickly remembered the strength he had found in himself, the community he had built around him, and the dreams he was pursuing. "I have a life now, one that I'm proud of," he said defiantly, his voice gaining strength. "And it's not one that includes you or the people you hang out with." "Suit yourself then," Marcus replied, shrugging, though the anger in his voice was palpable. "But don't say I didn't warn you. You'll regret it when you realize you've turned your back on your real friends." With that, he stepped back, smirking as he watched Jake turn away. As Jake walked home, his mind was a whirlwind of emotions. The encounter with Marcus had shaken him. Memories of their shared past flooded his mind, the thrill of reckless nights and the adrenaline that came with living on the edge. But alongside those memories were the darker moments, the fear, the loneliness, the despair. Jake had fought too hard to allow those memories to dictate his future. When he finally arrived home, the comforting atmosphere of the community center felt like a refuge. He knew he had to talk to Samuel. He needed guidance to process the confrontation and regain his footing. The next morning, Jake sought out Samuel at the center. The air was filled with the smell of fresh coffee and pastries, and a few young men were already gathered, chatting animatedly. Samuel was in the kitchen, preparing for the day, his demeanor warm and welcoming. "Hey, Jake. Great to see you," Samuel greeted, wiping his hands on a towel as he turned to face him. "How did the dinner go? I heard it was a huge success." Jake forced a smile, but inside he felt conflicted. It went well. Everyone enjoyed it, but his voice trailed off, uncertainty clouding his thoughts. "But what?" Samuel asked gently, sensing the turmoil beneath Jake's words. "I ran into Marcus last night. He was trying to pull me back into the old crowd," Jake admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "He said I'd regret leaving that life behind." Samuel's expression shifted to one of concern. "That must have been tough. How did you handle it?" "I didn't go with him, but it shook me," Jake replied, his hands clenching into fists. "For a moment, I felt the old temptation rise up. I was terrified. I might just fall back into that chaos." "Temptation can be powerful," Samuel said thoughtfully. "But remember, it's also a choice. You have the strength to choose differently, Jake. It's a part of the journey. You need to acknowledge those feelings without letting them control you." Jake nodded, appreciating Samuel's understanding. "I guess I'm just scared that one bad decision could undo everything. I don't want to lose what I've built here." "You won't lose it unless you choose to walk away," Samuel said firmly. "You have a support system now. Lean on your friends. Talk to them about what you're feeling. Don't let the past dictate your future. You have so much potential." Feeling somewhat reassured, Jake took a deep breath. "Thanks, Samuel. I really appreciate your support. I'll try to talk to the guys about what happened." As the day progressed, Jake engaged with the other young men in the program. They cooked, laughed, and shared their aspirations, each moment serving as a reminder of the community he had built. He spoke candidly about his encounter with Marcus, sharing the fear and temptation he felt. To his surprise, the group rallied around him, offering their own stories of struggle and resilience. "I've had moments like that too," said one of the young men, Eric. "It's tough when people from the past try to pull you back in. But we're stronger together, man. You've got us. Don't let anyone take that away from you." As Jake listened, he felt the warmth of camaraderie enveloping him. The support of his peers fueled his determination to resist the pull of his past. He knew he had to stay focused on his passion for cooking and the dreams he was building. With each passing day, Jake began to lean into his role as a leader within the program. He helped plan more community events and cooking classes, drawing inspiration from the love and support that surrounded him. He even initiated a weekly story-sharing session where participants could openly discuss their struggles and victories. It became a space of healing and understanding, allowing everyone to confront their fears without judgment. But just when Jake felt he had regained his footing, the shadows crept back in. One evening, as he left the community center, he spotted Marcus once again, this time waiting near a group of old acquaintances. Jake's heart sank. He felt the familiar pull of anxiety as he weighed his options. "Hey, Jake, come over here," Marcus called out, a glint of mischief in his eyes. The group of young men laughed, and Jake felt the pressure mount within him. He took a deep breath, reminding himself of the resolve he had forged over the past weeks. Instead of approaching, Jake turned on his heel and headed in the opposite direction. His heart raced, but he felt a sense of empowerment as he walked away, refusing to let Marcus drag him back into the darkness. As he arrived home, Jake felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. He had faced his fear, but the encounter left him shaken. He reached out to Samuel, hoping to discuss his feelings. They met the next day, and Jake recounted the incident. "Walking away from temptation can be a struggle," Samuel said, empathy in his eyes. "You made the right choice by not engaging. But remember, it's okay to feel conflicted. Acknowledge those feelings, but don't let them define you." "I know," Jake replied, his voice filled with frustration. "But sometimes I feel like I'm just one bad choice away from falling back into everything I worked so hard to escape." "That's why community is essential. It's your anchor," Samuel replied. "When you feel those doubts creeping in, reach out to the people around you. Let them remind you of who you are now, not who you were then." With each passing day, Jake committed to focusing on his growth and the relationships he had built. He found strength in the community and embraced the moments of vulnerability that surfaced. Though the shadows of his past continued to linger, he realized that they no longer had the power to dictate his path. As winter approached and the city prepared for the holidays, Jake and the group decided to host a special community dinner to celebrate their progress and unity. They planned a feast that would showcase the culinary skills they had honed throughout the program. Jake felt a surge of excitement as he mapped out the menu, envisioning the joy that would fill the room. On the night of the dinner, the community center transformed into a warm, inviting space filled with twinkling lights and the comforting aroma of home-cooked meals. Young men, families, and community members gathered, eager to celebrate the bonds they had formed. Jake stood at the entrance, greeting guests with a wide smile, his heart swelling with pride. As he watched everyone mingle, laughter filling the air, he realized how far he had come. The fear that once gripped him began to fade, replaced by a sense of belonging and hope. As the dinner began, Samuel took to the stage, raising his glass to toast the group. Tonight, we celebrate not just food, but the connections we've made and the journeys we've embarked upon together. Here's to resilience, to dreams. You said. Continue with part 6 more unique and lengthy. ChatGPT said. ChatGPT. Part 6. A night to remember. As Samuel raised his glass, the room quieted, the air thick with anticipation. Here's to resilience, to dreams, and to the power of community. Let's honor the hard work and dedication each one of you has put into your journeys. And tonight, let's enjoy the fruits of our labor. A chorus of cheers erupted, glasses clinking together, echoing the shared commitment to growth and transformation. Jake's heart soared as he watched his peers lift their glasses high, camaraderie palpable in the air. In that moment, he felt a renewed sense of purpose and belonging, the weight of doubt gradually lifting. The meal began, and Jake moved from table to table, sharing the stories behind each dish he had created. He watched as the room filled with laughter and joy, each person savoring the culinary delights he had prepared with love and intention. The soup was a hearty lentil creation, seasoned with spices that reminded Jake of his childhood, while the main course was a colorful stir-fry packed with vegetables sourced from the local farmer's market. Each bite transported his guests to a place of comfort and nostalgia. As the evening progressed, Jake's mind drifted back to the moment he had turned away from Marcus, the weight of that decision sinking in. Standing there surrounded by friends and allies, he realized how significant that choice had been. It wasn't just about resisting the temptation of the past, it was about embracing the possibilities of the future. When it came time for dessert, Jake presented a stunning apple tart, its golden crust glistening under the soft lights. "This is more than just dessert," he announced, his voice steady. "It's a celebration of the changes we've all made. Each slice represents our growth, our commitment to moving forward." As he cut into the tart, the buttery scent wafted through the air, igniting smiles across the room. With each slice he served, he shared anecdotes about his journey, revealing the challenges he had faced and the victories he had celebrated. The atmosphere buzzed with inspiration as others began to share their stories too, their words weaving a tapestry of resilience and hope. Eric stood up, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "I used to think I was alone in my struggles, but this community has shown me that we're all fighting similar battles. Jake's dinner is proof that we can rise above our pasts and create something beautiful together." The room erupted in applause, and Jake felt a swell of gratitude. It was moments like these that reinforced the importance of connection and vulnerability. He realized that each story shared, each experience revealed, was a thread that connected them all, a testament to their strength and the journey they were undertaking. As the night wore on, Jake noticed an older gentleman sitting quietly at the edge of the room, watching the festivities with a warm smile. Samuel approached him, gesturing for Jake to join them. "Jake, this is Mr. Thompson," Samuel introduced. "He's been a part of this community for many years and has seen many transformations." "Hello, Jake," Mr. Thompson said, extending a hand. "I've heard wonderful things about you. Your dinner is a testament to the growth of this program. You've brought a lot of joy to everyone here tonight." Jake felt a flush of pride wash over him. "Thank you, Mr. Thompson. It means a lot to hear that. I'm just trying to do my part to give back." Mr. Thompson nodded knowingly. "Giving back is what keeps this community alive. I watched many young men like you discover their potential. It's a beautiful thing. Just remember, this journey will have its ups and downs. Embrace the challenges. They'll make you stronger." Jake absorbed Mr. Thompson's words, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. He realized that his journey wasn't just about himself. It was about lifting others as well. This community had given him a second chance, and he wanted to ensure that others felt the same support and love he had experienced. As the evening drew to a close, the atmosphere was filled with warmth and laughter. Jake stood at the center of it all, overwhelmed by the love and support surrounding him. He caught sight of Samuel, who nodded encouragingly, his eyes shining with pride. Jake took a deep breath, feeling a sense of fulfillment wash over him. "Before we wrap up the night," Jake said, raising his voice slightly to gather everyone's attention, "I want to take a moment to express my gratitude. Each of you has played a role in my journey, and I couldn't have made it this far without your support. You've shown me what it means to belong, to be part of something greater than myself." The room erupted into applause once more, and Jake felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes. Let's continue to lift each other up, to share our stories, and to build this community together. I'm excited for what the future holds for all of us. As he finished speaking, a wave of emotion swept through him. It was a reminder of how far he had come, how much he had grown. The shadows of his past felt smaller in the face of the support he had cultivated. The evening culminated in dancing, laughter, and a sense of togetherness that lingered long after the last guests left. Jake found himself lost in the moment, surrounded by friends who felt like family. Weeks turned into months, and the community continued to thrive. Jake immersed himself in cooking, exploring new flavors and techniques while encouraging others to do the same. He began to take on more responsibilities within the program, helping to mentor newer members who were struggling to find their footing. Despite the joy surrounding him, Jake still faced moments of doubt and fear. The memory of Marcus and the temptation to slip back into old habits lurked in the corners of his mind. However, every time those thoughts crept in, he found solace in the relationships he had built. One day, as he prepared for a group cooking class, he noticed a young man sitting alone at a table, staring at his phone with a troubled expression. Jake recognized him as Tyler, a new addition to the program. He had joined recently, but had been quiet and reserved, often keeping to himself. Jake approached him with a friendly smile. "Hey, Tyler. Everything all right?" Tyler looked up, surprise flickering in his eyes. "Oh, hey. I'm fine. Just thinking. Mind if I join you?" Jake asked, pulling up a chair. Sometimes it helps to talk things out. Tyler hesitated for a moment before nodding. "I guess. I don't know if I belong here. I feel like everyone else has it together and I'm just lost." Jake felt a pang of recognition at Tyler's words. He remembered feeling the same way when he first joined the program. "You're not alone, Tyler. I felt the same way when I started. It takes time to find your place, but trust me, you belong here just as much as anyone else." Tyler sighed, his shoulders slumping slightly. "I'm just scared of messing up. What if I don't live up to everyone's expectations?" "Expectations can be tough," Jake replied thoughtfully. "But remember, we're all here to learn together. It's okay to make mistakes. That's part of the process. What matters is that you keep showing up just like I did." A flicker of hope crossed Tyler's face. "Really? You felt that way too?" "Absolutely," Jake said, feeling the connection deepen. "It's normal to feel uncertain. But this community is about lifting each other up, not tearing each other down. You'll find your rhythm." Tyler looked at Jake, a hint of gratitude shining through. "Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I just need to remember that I'm not alone in this." "You're definitely not," Jake replied, a sense of pride swelling within him. "And if you ever feel overwhelmed, just reach out. We're all in this together." As their conversation continued, Jake felt a sense of fulfillment wash over him. He was no longer just a participant in the program, he was becoming a mentor and a source of support for others. This role grounded him, helping him combat the fears and doubts that occasionally resurfaced. Over the next few weeks, Jake and Tyler developed a close friendship. They cooked together, shared stories, and supported each other through the ups and downs of their respective journeys. Jake watched as Tyler slowly began to blossom, gaining confidence and finding joy in cooking. However, the specter of Marcus loomed large in the background. One evening, as Jake walked home from the community center, he spotted Marcus yet again, this time leaning against a car parked on the street. His heart sank. "Hey, Jake. I see you're still playing chef," Marcus called out, a smirk playing on his lips, "still pretending to be something you're not." Jake felt the familiar pang of anxiety but took a deep breath, drawing strength from the progress he had made. "I'm not pretending, Marcus. This is who I am now." "Oh, please," Marcus scoffed, stepping closer. "You think those guys care about you? They'll drop you the moment it's convenient. You know how it works. Why not come back to where you really belong?" Jake shook his head, firm in his resolve. "I belong here, Marcus. This community has shown me what it means to be supported and valued. I won't let you or anyone else take that away from me." Marcus' expression shifted, annoyance flickering in his eyes. "You'll regret this, Jake. One day you'll wish you hadn't turned your back on the life we had." With that, he turned on his heel and walked away, leaving